Hi, this is Mr. Ward. I'm going to do a third video for Quadratics 12. I'm going to focus on problems like 4 and 5 where your lead coefficient is not 1. So let's go over here to my Desmos where I've got my work. And so I've got this one here and this one here. So I'm going to bring those together and let's deal with this one. So my lead coefficient is not 1. But before I do anything, I'm going to isolate things here. I'm going to get rid of that plus 24. I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. So I'm going to have this. So I'm going to subtract 24 here. And I'm subtracting 24 here. So that becomes 50 minus 24 is going to be 26. And 24 minus 24 is nothing. And now I've got to deal with the fact that I've got a lead coefficient that is not 1. So one thing I can do is I just factor it out of both sides. Later on, if I were graphing this, I do need to deal with the fact that there is that 2. But if I'm just trying to find the solutions right now, I'm just going to factor the 2 out. Okay. If I were graphing this, I definitely need that 2 back in. So don't lose track of it if you need to graph this one. Okay, so I'm going to factor a 2 out of everything. So divide by 2, divide by 2, and divide by 2. And so that all becomes 13. And that becomes a 12x. And this just becomes x squared. Factor the 2 out. And now I just need to figure out what I need to do with the things I've been doing before. I'm going to figure out what am I adding to both sides that would make the left side a perfect square. And the thing I'm going to add is going to be the square of half of this coefficient, the middle coefficient. So I'm going to say plus 12 over 2. Okay, and I'm sure you can figure out that that's 6, but sometimes the numbers will be messier. So over here, plus 12 over 2 squared, and they're going to both be squared. And now we'll clean things up on both sides. So that's a 6. And so that's a 36 squared is 36. Okay. And on the left side, I'm just going to clean up what's inside the parentheses because it'll be useful for me to have that as a note later. Okay. Now on 13 plus 36 is going to be 49. And then let's see. We can do the next step, which is going to be to factor the left side, which is just going to be x plus 6 squared. And now the next step is to get the square root of both sides. So square root of this business and the square root of 49. Okay, the square root of x plus 6 is just x plus 6. And on the right side, that's going to be 7. And negative 7x plus 6 will also equal negative 7. And I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. So x will be 1. And I'll subtract 6 from both sides here. So x will be negative 13. And so my solution is x is 1 and x is negative 13. I'll do one more like this here. And this one, so I'm going to do one more like this now. And then this one also has an odd, we'll end up with an odd number in the middle. So you may want to pause the video as you go. So you might want to try and figure out what is my first step. If you pause the video and you worked out that the first step was going to be to subtract 151.75 from both sides, you are right. 151.75 from both sides. Okay. And let's see, 3 minus 151.75 is negative 148.75. So let's deal with that. So that's negative 148.75. And on the left, this just goes bye-bye. Okay, now I'm going to notice that I have a lead coefficient of 7, and I will need that if I'm going to graph this, but for just solving this, I can just factor it out of everything. So let's do that. So that divided by 7, that divided by 7, and that divided by 7. Okay, so the only one that's going to be complicated is this one. What is that equal? So I'm going to use a calculator for that. Okay, and I get negative 21.25. So that's, hang on, copy that and bring the cursor, the scroll bar down just a little bit more. So 7, this part here is going to end up being x squared. So negative 77x over 7 is going to be negative 11x. And we just worked out that this here is going to be negative 21.25. I don't need that anymore. And now I am at the point of the next step. So you may want to pause the video and figure out what the next step is. If you paused and you worked out that I'm going to be adding the square of half of negative 11 to both sides, you are right. So I'm going to say plus, in parentheses, negative 11 over 2 squared, and over here, plus negative 11 over 2 squared. Okay, that is correct. Now I'm going to start cleaning all that up. Over here, it's going to be negative 6.5. I'm sorry, negative 5.5. And over here also, negative 5.5. On the right, I'm going to clean that up and figure out what negative 5.5 squared is. It's going to be the same. So negative 5.5 squared is 30.25. On the left, I'm going to leave that as is. So that's 30.25. Okay, and I'll tidy that up some more. 30.25 plus negative 21.25 is 9. Cool. That's an easy number to work with. So I can clean out some of these notes down here. And now we do the next step. Pause the video, figure out what the next step is. And if you pause, the next step is definitely to factor both sides. So x minus 5.5 squared equals 9. Okay, we factor the left side. Now, pause and figure out what the next step is. And if you figured out that it's to get the square root of both sides, you are right. Okay, and that's going to be the square root of 9 over here. And then we just got to figure out the square root to both sides. The left side is just x minus 5.5 because square root cancels a square. And the right side is 3 and negative 3. Okay, and at this point, I just have to do a one-step equation. I'm going to add 5.5 to both sides. So x will be 3 plus 5.5, which is 8.5. And I'll add, that should have been a negative 3. Now I'm going to also add 5.5 to both sides. So x equals negative 3 plus 5.5, which is 2.5. So that's 2.5. And so my solutions are x is 8.5 and x is 2.5. I hope that was helpful, and it's a good place to start.